All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jill Nagy Reynolds, and I'm with the SBA Columbus District Office. And welcome to this afternoon's Ohio Business Matchmaker webinar training. This training is actually in two parts, so just get ready to keep on learning as you've gone through this series of trainings, getting us ready for the matchmaker. Today, we are going to have an overview of cybersecurity, updates to the cybersecurity program, and then also we're going to learn about innovation through the Small Business Innovative Research Program, as well as Small Business Technology Transfer. In government speak, we refer to them as SBIR and STTR programs. I think they are uh, great options for small business and definitely worth learning more about. Just some logistical things before we get started. If any of you have questions throughout the training, if you can please put them in the chat. I will be monitoring the chat throughout the presentations. As you can tell, when we got started, this is being recorded. The recording will become available on the Ohio Business Matchmaker website in about 24 hours. And we have asked our presenters throughout our webinar training series to provide their slide decks to us if they have them. And then we post the slide decks also on the Ohio Business Matchmaker website. If you missed any of our prior trainings, you can go back, you can listen to the recordings, you can download the slides, you can contact any of the people that are mentioned in those slides. It's just all for your awareness as you're getting ready for the not only the Ohio Business Matchmaker, but also just for doing business with the government in general. And I find this hard to believe, but the matchmaker is actually 2 weeks from today. We have next week, webinar trainings on joint venture, how to joint venture, circumstances when joint venturing makes sense. We're going to have a panel of small businesses that have successfully partnered with businesses to form joint ventures. And then we'll also have an afternoon training on the SBA Mentor Protege and DoD Mentor Protege program with panelists of successful mentors and proteges. So I really hope you guys are able to join us for that. Um, Without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to my colleague, Joey Scott. He's with the Ohio Apex Accelerator statewide. He's a statewide manager. He's going to talk to you about Apex Accelerator services. Thank you, Joey.
You, Joe. Appreciate the introduction. As you all heard, I'm Joey Scott, statewide director for the Ohio Apex Accelerator, and hopefully everybody's familiar with the Apex Accelerator. We've been co-hosting these webinars and co-participant in the Ohio Business Matchmaker, and really honored and glad to be working with Jill and the SBA team and all of our other partners throughout this series and the Matchmaker event and a lot of other events all throughout the year too. So kind of game plan, I'll give you a little overview of Apex here briefly, and then we'll introduce our panelists for today's discussion. So in case you're not familiar with Apex Accelerators, we are funded in part by the Department of Defense, State of Ohio, to help businesses with all things government contracting. I always like to put our services into three buckets of becoming procurement ready, experiencing procurement success, and staying in the government marketplace. On the front end, it's all about helping companies position themselves for success. Through simple things such as getting registered to sell to federal, state, or local entities, helping you through your SAM registration, exploring business certifications, to helping you develop your capability statement and discuss how to market yourselves and present yourselves to government buyers. And then we can also help you on the research side of things, understanding how agencies buy, what they buy, and all of that. We also help you find opportunities through networking events and matchmaking events like the Ohio Business Matchmaker, as well as we have a free bid search program that will bring opportunities to your inbox based on like a keyword search that you would put into Google. And so, as a reminder as well, Apex Accelerator services are free and confidential. And so, as we're talking through all this, always like to make people aware of that and that most government things such as SAM registration are free as well. So, second bucket here, procurement success. Once you found an opportunity, we can review it with you. We can help you craft your proposal. We cannot write it for you, but we can review it with you, critique it, and help you make it as competitive and responsive as possible. We can also talk strategy about leveraging one win into multiple wins. We also can help you, with this catch-all bucket of just staying in procurement. So simple things such as assisting you through your annual SAM registration renewal, to more complex things like we're going to talk about today with cybersecurity requirements, especially for defense contractors. And we'll also help companies with the SBIR program and other innovation opportunities, and looking at, again, how to sell to federal, state, and local entities. We are empowered to assist. Our federal funders ask us to raise awareness and provide education on some of these topics that you see here, but we also like to provide training relevant to our clients. So we have training events all throughout the year on various subjects. And I'm going to pause there because that is overview of Apex Accelerators, and I will turn it back over to Jill real quick in case there's anything you'd like to add before we introduce our panelists.
I appreciate that. I can't really think of anything off of the top of my head except to, if you have questions after this training, we will have the recording available on the Ohio Business Matchmaker website. Please feel free to put questions into the chat and just reach out to us if you have any additional questions.
Thank you, Jill. So with that, I'd like to switch over and introduce our panelists today. The way we're going to run this format, it's going to be very much a discussion. So I did ask that if they have any slides, that we share these afterwards. We'll make sure that they're available on the website, but we want to make sure that this is a discussion and get you introduced to where things are with cybersecurity. So first up, I would like to introduce Deja Johnson. Deja, would you like to introduce yourself real quick?
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Joey. As you stated, my name is Deja Johnson. I am the program specialist within the Ohio Apex Accelerator, which essentially means that I help to support all of the Ohio Apex Accelerator counselors around the state. And I also manage a few auxiliary programs that empower the Ohio Apex Accelerator constituents in a multitude of ways that we'll cover here this afternoon. So, pleasure to be here.
Deja. Next up, I'd like to introduce Olivia Hernandez. Olivia?
Thank you so much, Joey. So I am Dr. Olivia K. Hernandez, and I am actually the lead engineer in the Industrial Cybersecurity Division at the Center for Design and Manufacturing Excellence in the College of Engineering at The Ohio State University. So that's my professional title. And then on a personal side, I am also the owner of Caked and Flour Bakery LLC. So I'm both a small business and a cybersecurity person. So I think that's kind of a unique position to be in. So you've probably heard of Ohio State, the Ohio State University. So we have over 66,000 students and we do over $1 billion in research expenditures every year. You might not have heard about the Center for Design and Manufacturing Excellence. So our center has actually been around for over 10 years. And in that time, we've completed over 700 projects, as well as had hundreds of undergraduate researchers employed who are really the lifeblood of our center. And they work on the projects and they really develop unique skills, communication, leadership that they not necessarily get in a classroom setting. And these are real projects with real deliverables. So I think that's something that's just so unique about our center. And we can really, give our students this great opportunity. And then I'm one of about 30 research staff that we have here. And then we have 7 different divisions. So I'm in the Industrial Cybersecurity Division. We also have additive manufacturing, artificially intelligent manufacturing systems, as well as a medical division. So we basically do it all. So our very humble mission is to fortify the U.S. industrial cybersecurity resilience and bolster our competitive edge in the global marketplace. Not a big deal. So specifically, I am here to talk a little more about a course that we're offering that is free cybersecurity training for all Ohio small businesses and nonprofits. And we define small as fewer than 500 employees. As a business of one, I thinking, up to 499 is, pretty large, but the technical definition of small is that. So I will say that this is funded in part through a cooperative agreement with the U.S. Small Business Administration. So that's how we got our funding to provide this free training. So it's all online, on demand, self-paced. And if you go to osucybered.org, you can register and we collect just some basic information about your business, since we do have to ensure that you are an Ohio business and that we're not, training foreign adversaries on cybersecurity. So we have a variety of content, including passwords, phishing, cyber inventory, and different incident responses. And we have video and slide format, so you can choose how you want to go through. And when you complete the course, you actually get a badge that you can put in your LinkedIn or on your email signature, kind of saying, hey, I took the time, I did my due diligence, I'm trained up in foundational cybersecurity. And we just think it's such a great opportunity. And you also go over synergies with the Ohio Data Protection Act, as well as CMMC Level 1 that you can achieve with our first 2 gateways.
Awesome. Thank you, Olivia. We'll dive into more about that program in a little bit. So last but certainly not least, I'd like to introduce Randy Delarme. So Randy, you are muted, sir.
Thank you, Joey. Randy Delarme here with Ivory. My background is 26 years in DoD acquisition. So I started with the Army for 4 years at the Research and Development Center as an engineer, then went to work for the Marine Corps acquisition team for about 18 years. And my last 4 years was as a program executive officer for the Department of Navy, running all of their enterprise IT systems. And then the last 10 years I've spent in the commercial sector, running enterprise IT projects, and specifically focused on Ivory and the CMMC implementation. So we do MSP work and compliance work centered around mostly CMMC, but level 1 also for companies that don't work with DoD but still have federal contract information. So glad to be here and look forward to the discussion.
Yes, sir. So really glad to have all 3 of you here with us today. So each brings a unique perspective to the cybersecurity landscape and from their backgrounds and the different organizations that they represent. So kind of next up, I know we got a little peek into what the programs are that they all are involved with. But for everyone on the call, I want to make sure that we kind of set the playing field here. So Deja, would you be able to kind of start off and talk about the program that you are managing at the Department of Development related to cybersecurity?
Absolutely. So a few years ago, there was a pilot program that kicked off that essentially was designed to help small businesses enhance their cybersecurity posture, specifically as it related to defense contractors. And then we have decided to pull that program and bring it in-house at the Department of Development, as Joey stated, specifically in response to some of the Department of Defense's ruling around cybersecurity over the past year or so. And with that, we were able to create a program that's called Cybersecure. And Cybersecure is a cybersecurity readiness program that's designed to equip Ohio small businesses with strategies to enhance their cybersecurity posture and specifically to help the defense contractors comply with some of those new government contracting requirements around cybersecurity. So that said, there are essentially 2 lanes of support for this program, one for defense contractors and then one for general small business support or even those that are working in the commercial retail space. Small businesses that are interested in this program would, of course, apply and then be introduced to a preliminary training, which you'll hear a little bit more about in just a few moments. And that provides them an opportunity to essentially get their feet wet with a lot of the consulting topics that they will be discussing in the Cybersecure program. Once completing the preliminary training, of course, these small business entities are connected with a cybersecurity professional who will enact one-on-one counseling that includes everything from a cybersecurity assessment that is created in adherence to the NIST SP 800-171 standards. And then after said assessment, of course, they are working with those cybersecurity professionals to create plans of actions, a plan of action of milestones, or a system security plan, or relevant documentation that, again, help them understand exactly where they are in the world of cybersecurity compliance and what barriers exist for them to actually achieve a level 2 cybersecurity certification. Again, with that, there is another lane that holds true for small businesses that are not interested in maybe achieving level 2 certification or doing defense contract work, where those small businesses are held to the level 1 certification criteria, which would include 17 controls listed, which honestly could be things that any small business, almost any individual, would be able to and should be adhering to. And this cybersecurity program, of course, is applicable to Ohio Apex Accelerator clients, as well as Ohio Small Business Development Center clients, being that they would also have not only the cybersecurity professional that helps walk them through this process of understanding what is needed to be done, but then their respective counselor is also able to, at the program conclusion, help them to start putting boots to ground and achieving some of the or overcoming some of the barriers and actually going out and achieving the respective certifications that they need. The Cybersecure program offers, again, free and confidential counseling services to eligible small businesses. This program just launched here April 1st, actually. So we're proud to have our first few clients kind of going through the program here, and hoping to see a ton of success here this summer in the world of cybersecurity compliance.
Looks like we have a question in the Q&A. So Andrew was asking about self-assessment for NIST SP 800-171. He'd like to know what is involved with that.
Sure.
I will say, yeah, I think this is something that we're going to get through kind of the conversation. So if we could just kind of hold that for a moment, we'll definitely address that in more detail in a little bit.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Deja. Thank you, Jill. So Olivia, I'd like you to kind of, I know you gave us a little glimpse into the program, but can you speak specifically to the program that you're managing? And, again, Deja highlighted it's kind of a collaborative partnership with program she's running as well. So.
Absolutely. So our first gateway, our course I'm talking about today, is the prerequisite to get into that cybersecure program, which is amazing. So we are like the foundational level, which is just getting you up to the low hanging fruit, things such as phishing, passwords, and other things. So we think that this is just a great partnership where you start kind of talking the talk, and then this next program can kind of take you the rest of the way to walk the walk. We do have a lot of supplements in our program, which are different things such as checklists, so you can actually have something tangible and create artifacts with our program. And then, of course, the training is free, so that's always a good thing. And all the materials are designed on established standards such as NIST to provide immediate value. And then again, that badge that I mentioned is just, an extra token to showcase that you've taken your time and done your due diligence to protect yourself, your clients, and your customers in cybersecurity events. And we're also connected with the governor's office and the Ohio Persistent Cyber Improvement Program. So Ohio State's really using our network to make this as robust as possible. And we cover a range of foundational topics that we think everyone should know, as kind of Deja was saying, for level 1. These are pretty basic. I mean, not basic as in simple, but, basic as in everyone should be doing them. Things such as, patch management, your backups, incident response versus disaster response, internal auditing, and cyber inventory, and things such as that. So we really hope that you enroll and help educate yourself today.
Thank you, Olivia. So, we just heard about two, programs that are designed specifically to assist you. And so I'd like Randy to talk more about Ivory and kind of, from a consulting point of view, what all does he get involved with? So, Randy, please.
Yeah, thank you, Joey. So I'm going to keep this more, I guess, philosophical as opposed to an advertisement for Ivory, because I think in our portfolio we have 4 small businesses, 3 of whom uh, have to follow the CMMC criteria. And so we experience both sides of this, both delivering consulting and MSP services and compliance services to our clients. But we have to also deal with the uncertainties and the issues around being compliant and staying compliant as small businesses. So I'm going to kind of stay at that level. First of all, from just an Ivory point of view, primarily, focus on the defense industrial base. We do level 1 CMMC for general federal contracting information. We have worked in a lot of retired Marines. All branches of service are now represented within the Ivory team, but we've worked on aboard ship in hardship zones, combat zones, as a matter of fact. And so as you progress through getting started in the DoD and working with CUI, you may decide you want to go to the next level and look at classified programs or working in austere environments. And we have that background and experience to go all the way up to and including TSSCI. We've got an international presence. We have clients in the Philippines, and we're working with the Philippine government to make their IT more compatible with U.S. forces in the Indo-Pacific theater, which is a major national security objective. So we have that view as well. If some of you get involved in OCONUS programs in the Pacific theater or otherwise. Mostly veterans, as I said, and then we're a registered practitioner organization within the CMMC and registered with the accreditation body. And then we have folks that are trained and certified both as assessors and auditors. We don't do that work, however. Our focus is on helping clients get ready for that, and we keep the independence so that we're not doing both sides of the coin here, both preparing people and inspecting people. So that's primarily the thing that we do. We've got a 3-phase approach to this. One of the things I would say is, as Dr. Hernandez mentioned, 500 is a big number for some small companies. And so whether you're 5 people or 500 people, one of the things we try to do, and you should keep in mind, is that there's multiple ways of doing this and going through it. And so we try to help our clients customize what's right. There are 2 elements here, and you know this already as small businesses. There's both the cost of it and the cash flow of it. And one of the things that Ivory specializes is helping clients find creative ways to progress through the compliance process, but manage cash flow and not just cost. Because $10,000 in a week is different than $10,000 over a couple of months. And we certainly understand that math and that equation. And then just in terms of scope, and I guess we'll get into it, but what we're talking about here is 14 control families. There's 110 controls, and then practices or objectives. There's 320 of those associated with each of those elements. And we'll get into that some more. One of the things that we do is keep track of the market and where it's going. So the next release of the NIST SP 800-171 is in draft and in comment. We've done that. And there's some changes that we can summarize later if there's time in terms of where do we think the market's going. And it has some implications in terms of costs and some of the design decisions you make today. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Joey, and stand by.
Thank you, sir. So thank you all for that overview and look into more about the programs that you're running and I hope that provides our audience a bit more understanding about, where these backgrounds are. We got, people with, vast experience here. Randy's team has that understanding of CMMC on, both sides of the fence. I know Olivia's dealing with things, both on, the OSU CDME side and her own small business side. Deja's dealing with companies day in, day out on the counseling side as well. So With that, first up, I will give our presenters a little break. If you need to turn your cameras off or anything to save, bandwidth, please feel free. I just want to give you that ability there. But next up, I'd like to kind of dive into the cybersecurity discussion part of things, right? And so, Randy, if you could actually kind of kick us off, talking about that overview of what DoD cyber regulations are. We had that question about the self-assessment. I think most people are familiar with that, having had to deal with it for a few years now. But what does the cybersecurity landscape look like right now if you're a defense contractor?
So it is interesting, and most of you, if you followed this for the last several years, almost the last decade, it's been evolving and it's been being pushed to the right and delayed. There were a lot of times when folks were wondering, is the government really going to get serious about it? Is DoD really going to get serious about it? And there was some uncertainty there, but last October they did the final rule in the Code of Federal Regulations and passed that, and it took effect in December, and now they have a timeline of certainty around when the program is actually going to be put in place. To just cover it, there are several hierarchies of regulations and clauses that come into play. So the Code of Federal Regulations, CFR, is first. From that, the federal government updates the Federal Acquisition Regulation, and you'll come to know that more than you probably ever wanted to. And then for the Defense Department, there is a supplement to the Federal Acquisition Regulation called DFARS. And it is special rules and regulation or enhancements to those federal level regulations that apply specifically to DoD contractors. And then within the DFARS, there are specific clauses that they call out, 7012, 7019. And so I don't want to get into all of the alphabet soup, if you will, but what they've been struggling with so far is getting the CFR and the final rule, which changes the public regulation. That's behind us, and by far, I think, was the biggest hurdle to get through. The pace of play has accelerated rapidly now that that regulation is in place. The DFARS and FAR documentation is out there for comment. In fact, I believe the comment period has ended. And so what that will do is implement DFARS clauses that will then be put into federal contracts. And the current regulations require that any contract that has CUI now incorporates those DFARS clauses. Many of them have some of the earlier ones that call out general things that you have to do and follow, but the very specific and the final piece of it was essentially putting in a contract clause that you're obligated to that says you will subject your environment to a third-party auditor that you have to pay for to independently come in on behalf of the government and inspect your environment every 3 years. Some of the earlier clauses made you do that as a self-assessment, and that question came up earlier. For a level 1, all you ever need is a self-assessment. Oftentimes, if you don't have the experience, you'd ask a third party to help you with that, but they would be working on your behalf and for you. And so as those clauses matured, the final phase was getting a clause in the contract that said it is no longer voluntary to have a third party look at it, but an independent third party will inspect your cybersecurity system, much in the way that DFAS used to, the Defense Contract Management Agency, DCMA, used to do for manufacturing and other contract requirements. They've in fact held that responsibility, but they've created a separate body that are experts in cybersecurity to do this particular audit. So you are now required by contract in any contracts moving forward to include options on existing contracts. Contracting officers are required to include these clauses, and contractors are then bound to meet those requirements. So when you get down to it, and one of the things that I think the Apex Accelerator can help with, and companies like Ivory can help with, is looking at your contracts, looking at those clauses, understanding the level of data that you have and where that will take you within the framework of compliance. So it's important to understand there are still things going on, but at the federal level, it is done. The Federal Acquisition Regulation and supplemental to that, the DFARS, are now rapidly approaching the final stage. If you have a new contract, it will have these clauses. If you have an existing contract that is going to continue into the future, the contracting officers are required by the regulation to incorporate this clause. It's not a unilateral mod, but you agree not to accept that clause at your peril to continue contracting. So, not sure, Joey, but that's sort of an overview of where they are from a standpoint of regulations. And I don't want to go into all of the numbers and details of it, but that's the hierarchy of it.
Appreciate that, sir. You know, and with that, you talked about the self-assessment. You know, what specifically goes into that self-assessment?
So there's a couple of things. If you're doing a level 1, and I think my colleague mentioned it earlier, there's 6 control families, there's 17 controls, and there's 59 practices. You would either internally or externally, or as a hybrid of that, look at each of those 59 practices within the control families that exist. For example, access control policies, and within there having email, password, and multi-factor authentication, and each of those practices that are basic. And you'd look at each of those, determine whether your environment meets the intent of those requirements, and essentially create a gap analysis to say, here's what we meet, and here's where we don't meet it. The next phase of that would be solutioning that to determine how you're going to fill those gaps, and then working towards filling those gaps. If you're going for a level 2, you would then get into the reporting system and report your SBIR score. And we can get into that maybe in more detail later. But one of the obligations you have as a CUI holder or processor or receiver or sender of CUI is to put your SBIR score on the DoD website. And you can put that in at whatever stage you're at, and then work towards improving that over time. And then ultimately you would fix the gaps that you had, and then you would have a sustainment program, because there are things that change. There are policies that need to be updated on a regular basis. Some of those you determine internally. Some of those the government says as a minimum you must update. And so there becomes a sustainment piece to that along the way. But the self-assessment is exactly that. You look at each of those practices and see whether or not you're in compliance with the NIST 800-171 criteria. For a level 2, instead of just 6 families and 59 practices, there's 14 families and 320 practices. So the level of scrutiny and the level of work that goes into a self-assessment, looking at each of those practices within the controls and control families, gets to be pretty daunting. And you need some fairly sophisticated IT people that understand networks and understand software and patching to do that. I will say, though, that we estimate around 70% of this work is non-technical. The 30% that is very technical, and you need experts to understand it. But 70% of it is policies and procedures and practices that you do, training that you do. And that's one of the reasons why the level of corporate involvement, whether you're a small business or a larger business, it's critical that your C-suite, whatever that means for you, is engaged in the program and supports it, because it has to be resourced and it has to be a priority.
Thank you, sir. And I think I saw a question before we move on from the self-assessment that, one of our attendees is asking, what level is required for a self-assessment to be completed?
From a CMMC point of view, a self-assessment is required, and it's the only requirement at level 1. Once you go into level 2 and you have controlled unclassified information, then you have to do a self-assessment and enter your SBIR score in the DoD system. You also, at some point, will have to schedule a third-party audit for them to inspect the work that you've done, where you've declared your self-assessment and your score.
Thank you, sir. I'd also like to add too is, while CMMC, is the big thing coming down the road, right? It's been talked about for so many years now. It's here. It's coming. It's coming. Don't forget about current contract requirements, right? And so, while we're talking about that self-assessment in relation to CMMC, many, defense contracts already require you to have a self-assessment completed if you see like DFARS 252.204-7012. There's just some things you have memorized in your head, but if you see that, even before we have the CMMC conversation, you want to think about that self-assessment. And Randy, anything else you'd like to add, sir, before we move in a different direction here?
No, I think I'm okay as long as they think it answered the question sufficiently.
Thank you, sir. So, and with that, we're talking about, resources to help, through the self-assessment and CMMC. Olivia, could you talk to, your program and kind of the resources that you have available to businesses?
Absolutely. Thank you, Joey. So our program, like I said, it's online, on demand, self-paced. So we tried to make it as accessible as possible to all the small businesses and nonprofits in Ohio. So it is, kind of you go through your own modules, but we're always here to answer questions or comments or if you have problems. So there is that support side. And I think the fact that we're the prerequisite for the Cybersecure program is another way that we support people. It's like I said, you're kind of getting the foundations and then get that level 1, and then you can, go up the path as required based on your contract and the role you're playing with the DoD.
Thank you. And then I think that's a good segue, Deja. What support is that Cybersecure program offering to businesses, especially, as people try to complete that self-assessment?
Sure. To Randy's point earlier, the requirements for level 2 certification require a rigorous and detailed assessment. There are, what Randy mentioned, over 300 different criteria that you're held to that's then categorized, broken off into over 100 different buckets touching almost every facet of your business in terms of understanding where your business exists in cybersecurity. And so navigating the assessment in and of itself can be a very daunting, time-consuming task that even still may hit a few very technical components within your business that not every member of the organization could perhaps speak to. So similar to the way that the Ohio Apex Accelerator helps to navigate contracting clauses, there are professionals that exist to help navigate some of the very technical aspects of cybersecurity. In addition to that, locating some of those cybersecurity professionals can be a costly undertaking in and of itself. Identifying someone that can help walk through that assessment process and paying them to do so. Lots of small businesses have kind of seen, some of these different propaganda here recently where people are selling assessment tools or what do you call it? Soliciting themselves as assessors. So this Cybersecure program not only has those professionals in place to help walk you through already, but again, the program is free in that we're bringing you the technical expertise that you need. We are dedicating the time to your business and helping you to create a very detailed plan that is tailored to your business so that not only will you have taken the self-assessment and help those cybersecurity professionals help you to navigate through SPIRs and get your score updated, creating the cybersecurity documentation that identifies your plan of attack on how to address the deficiencies that you found within that assessment. All of those things would essentially be taken care of after you walk out of the Cybersecure program. from that point, you know exactly what your business is going to need to do to again finally achieve that level of certification after the final assessment. So I think what we eliminate is a lot of the uncertainty, and even still, probably most importantly, a lot of the financial burden that it requires to achieve or answer a lot of those questions.
Oh, really helping companies get that roadmap to figure out what to do next, where to go, and while providing support along the way. So thank you, Deja. And thank you, Olivia and Randy, as well for all that. Something that Randy touched on that I'd like to kind of circle back with everybody as well. It's important to make sure, your CEO, business owner, insert word here, is committed and has buy-in to the cybersecurity and why it's important. But who all within a company needs to worry about cybersecurity? Is it only the C-suite? Is it everybody? Is it just the IT person? Could you all and we'll kind of go in a loop here. I'll start with Deja, but who all would you recommend really needs to be worried about cybersecurity?
I would say that gone are the days where cybersecurity or cybersecurity conversations only existed within the IT department of a company. I think cybersecurity is a company-wide priority, or at least it needs to be, from the executives all the way down to the frontline employees. Everybody's going to have to play a role in protecting the company's digital assets. And I think the way that looks is that the leadership is going to set the tone by prioritizing cybersecurity strategies and making correct strategic decisions, even allocating resources appropriately to ensure that cybersecurity practices and procedures are top of line for the business. I think employees across all departments have to be knowledgeable and vigilant about things like password security practices, safeguarding data, phishing attempts even. We've all seen those phishing emails come through in our respective workplaces. I think even the non-technical staff can help be either gatekeepers for the business, or even still they could be risks depending on their level of awareness within the respective cybersecurity landscape. Cybersecurity health for any business is only as strong as its weakest link. So at that point, I think it has to be a shared responsibility and really built into the culture of the organization.
Hey, panel, we're getting some questions coming in. There's still like one of the attendees, he still doesn't understand if he needs level 1 or 2 for NIST SP 800-171.
So I can address that. If you have, in the simplest form, if you have federal contracts and you're doing proposal work and you have contracts from the federal government writ large, as a minimum, you need level 1 certification to manage that. And what they're concerned about there is personally identifiable information. They're worried about contract pricing, some of the content and things that are proprietary. And so they require that. If you manage controlled unclassified information, and that would be specified in your contract, then you would need level 2. If you handle CUI that is specified CUI, like ITAR data, International Trade and Arms Regulation data, or critical technical information, that would also be specified in your contract under the clauses that were mentioned earlier: 7012, 7019, 7020, 721. So you can very quickly go in and determine, based on your contract that you have from the government or your prime, whether or not those DFARS clauses are called out specifically in your contract. And if they're not, then you would need level 1. If they are, you need at least level 2. If it mentions ITAR or CTI, critical technical information, you'd need a level 2 high. And then in very rare cases, you might need a level 3, but that would be very specific to a contract. Hopefully that helps. I do have a slide, Joey, if if it would help to clear this up a little bit.
Please go ahead, sir, if you want to share that real quick.
Just very quick, I'll do that.
So if I'm understanding, it depends on the contract.
It does. It does. So if your contract is a federal contract but does not have CUI information, you fall in the federal contract information and level 1 certification. If you have CUI and you have the clauses 7020, 7021, then you're required level 2. If you have ITAR and CTI data, and this would be specified in your contract, then you would require a level 2 high. And that is the essence of it. Now, if the question is more along the lines of when should I do a self-assessment, or do I just need an external third party, highly recommend that you do a self-assessment, and a detailed one, I think as Deja pointed out, but you will have to do that third party. And by all measures, you want to make sure that you've gone in and done your due diligence before you call the auditors in, because that gets very, very expensive once they're hired to come in and do their inspection. So your contract will specify the type of data that you're going to manage on that contract. And based on that, it will drive you to a level 1, level 2, or level 2 high, or level 3.
Now, Randy, is that in the solicitation? So under like evaluation criteria, or, so that they can know that from the beginning?
Yes, it would be in Section H under clauses. And one of the interesting things that I think should be noted, and it relates to the future conversation around SBIRs and STTRs, the government is now more and more publishing request for proposal information that is CUI or CUI high. In some cases, even ITAR data, especially when you get into some of the SBIR programs and STTR programs. So absolutely, it would be in the solicitation, and it would specify specifically what level you would need. But in some cases, you'll need that just to get the information that you'll need to respond to a particular proposal. And that's becoming more common.
Is it
you, sir.
fair to, I might venture to say that it's less about what is specifically in that contract, that specific contract you're looking for or at, as to which level you want, and maybe the type of work that you want your business to go after just in general. If I'm only looking at one contract at a time, understanding the amount of work that it's going to take to achieve specific levels of certification or compliance, it may take me a while to hit that level of achievement, at which point the contract kind of comes and goes. So understanding, where my business is positioned and what kind of work it is I want to do can also help to answer the question of, well, which level of certification should I be chasing?
It's a great point. Yeah.
And it
Go
seems
ahead.
like it would be, just along with what Deja is saying, a competitive advantage if you have the level 2.
It's absolutely true. In some cases, if you're a communications company and you're helping with a federal office with their marketing or their communication plan, or you're helping them through an organizational change, if that's your specialty, there's a good chance you won't run into CUI. If you're more technical and you're helping them, or you're providing products or doing manufacturing, there's a very, very good chance that the majority of work you'll do will contain at least some CUI. And to that point, primes, and a lot of times small businesses start out as subcontractors to larger primes. Your position with them and your competitive advantage against other small businesses with primes or directly with the government is significantly enhanced if you have that certification.
Thank you. Randy, did you want to share that slide real quick?
I thought I was. Is it not showing? Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Share. Why is that? There we go. Sorry. I thought it was sharing. So this is the the slide I was referring to. So your contract will not only talk about what level of information is there, but it will have specific DFARS clauses or FAR clauses that call out the level of certification that you require.
So to keep it, at the simplest level, then, essentially looking at what clauses are in this solicitation or the contract, that will kind of guide what you need to prepare for.
Exactly right. So this is another view. Hopefully, can you see that? It's the regulatory framework that we discussed earlier.
Yes.
Yeah. So these clauses down here at the bottom, and you'd mentioned the 7012 earlier, 7019, 7020, and 7021. Those are the clauses that you would look for, and they would dictate the level of certification required.
I guess that leads into another question that I always like to ask people too is, when you're looking at identifying CUI, right? Who is responsible for telling, what is CUI? Randy, if you'd like to.
Is that okay? So typically the owner of the document is required, and there's a very elaborate labeling system and set of rules and processes that you have to go through. There's some great information online that is available through DISA and CISA around how to label CUI documents. For the most part, as small businesses, we will get information that the government has declared and labeled as such, CUI. From time to time, though, as you start to build products and make deliveries against the data that the government gives you, you will have to determine that. And most likely what you would do is talk that over with your client to say if the derivative of analysis, say, that you've done against their documents that are marked CUI, if they constitute additional controlled unclassified information. But the owner of the document is required to determine that, and only they can turn it off once it's been declared CUI.
Thank you for that. So I always like people to understand, at least at the simplest term, you're going to be told from the government face down or prime contractor face down, that is, how you're going to get, what is CUI from the outset. And then, like you said, you may have to figure it out from there if you're, especially in R&D, innovation, if you're creating something entirely new, you're going to have to figure that out. But
I have another question.
Yes.
Because I understand level 1 is a self-assessment. If you're level 2, is that something that needs to be updated annually? Or what's the time frame for updating it to make sure that, if there's been changes, that you're compliant with the changes?
So there's, and I'll take this if that's okay, but there's several different timelines. Some of those are determined internally by your own policy. So for example, you may have to review dormant accounts on a quarterly basis if that's your internal policy. But you have to at least update.
I can't hear Randy anymore. Is that just me? Okay. Yes, I can hear you now.
I'm sorry. So it is going to be annually, and you have to look at your SSP on an annual basis, your security support plan. And so you will have a series of timelines, and that's what we were talking about earlier when we talked about sustainment once you're compliant. As changes happen, either in requirements that the government issues or in your environment because you've upgraded a firewall or you've changed your email service, you have to keep that environment current and enter a SBIR score on an annual basis, and then get an external review every 3 years. And so you're at least required to keep your SBIR score current on an annual basis, and then every 3 years, it will be inspected as a minimum by an external party. But there's a multitude of other policies and internal actions that your team will want to do to make sure that you're staying current. For example, looking at patching and alerts that come out on various software, whether it's Microsoft or third-party software. Your email policies around complexity, around how often it gets updated. And you'll want to keep records of that so that you have the documents to show that not only do you have a policy that guides your email password and account password process, but you're actually following that and documenting that as you go. And there are tools from spreadsheets to more advanced tools that help you manage that documentation and that compliance.
Awesome. So I want to kind of ask our panelists a question, kind of shifting away from the CMMC focus right now. But say that you are a small business, and cybersecurity is always important, regardless of the industry or where you're at. Whether you want to go to government contracting or not. So what recommendations would you all have for just basic cybersecurity practices or suggestions, and maybe it's even just physical protection in the business? Olivia, would you like to start?
Sure. So I would say that I recommend that you take our course to really start to dig into that. And then also to circle back to a few things that were said earlier, a lot of businesses, think they're too small to get hacked, and that's just not the case anymore. I'm a business of one, and I've had phishing attacks. So it's just really everyone's responsibility, as Deja was saying. And small businesses and nonprofits are often thought of as the low-hanging fruit for hackers. So it's like we want to protect ourselves as much as possible. And then just to touch on something else that was mentioned, the patching. So that's another module that we have in our course, as well as creating different documents and having those artifacts, if you will, to either get you up to that CMC level 1 or to have compliance with the Ohio Data Protection Act.
Thank you, Olivia. Deja, anything you'd like to add?
I'd say for a small business who's interested, of course, in enhancing their cybersecurity posture, not only engaging in any of these programs, there are, of course, maybe selfishly here, there are members within the Ohio Apex Accelerator organization, the SBDC organization, that will help to ensure that you're looking under every rock, so to speak. There are opportunities for other self-led training platforms, such as Project Spectrum, that is offered for businesses to, again, enhance their cybersecurity practices as well. So I encourage every small business to ensure that every member in their organization receives some sort of cybersecurity education, and that there are specific strategies being put in place at the leadership levels to, again, ensure that the best and most current practices are being adhered to. And that's something that, again, in terms of identifying those practices or avenues or training, that your other consultants, such as Apex Accelerator, can assist.
Thank you, Deja. Randy?
Thank you. Just real quick, I think I'm sharing a slide now as well that shows what we think is fundamental, and it's the level 1 criteria. So you can see the control families. One is access control. As a minimum, I would do this, and I'll just share an anecdotal story to Dr. Hernandez's point. A client of ours referred another company to us. They were implementing multi-factor authentication, but the CEO of the company, they had about 15 people, said, okay, they finally gave in and said, I'll implement multi-factor authentication, but only for the rest of my employees. It's too much of a pain and I'm too busy to do it. what happened is somebody hacked into their email, the CEO's email, activated what was a dormant accounting account for the CEO, and then sat and waited until they had several new hires starting by watching email and tracking those events. And the night before the first payroll for these new employees went out, they went into the accounting system and changed the routing numbers so that the paychecks went to a bank that they wanted instead of where the employee wanted it to go. And they were not a defense contractor. So to Dr. Hernandez's point, this is not just about DoD safeguarding, but it's about your proprietary information, your financial systems, and protecting private data. And so we think that the level 1 is a very affordable, practical baseline set of securities that are relatively easy to walk through and baseline on. And this chart here just shows of the level 2 controls that are all grayed out. The ones that still have color and are dotted are the controls that are required for a level 1, and there's 59 practices underneath each of total underneath these controls that you would implement. This is a fairly straightforward and affordable baseline solution for cybersecurity.
Thank you all. With that, let me pause there to our audience. What any burning questions do you have on cybersecurity, whether it's CMMC, general practices? What would you like to ask our panel while you have them? While you're thinking about those questions you want to ask them, please put them in the chat or the Q&A. Another question for our panelists, what if you had to summarize in just a few sentences, what recommendations would you have for companies to prepare to improve their cybersecurity, whether that is for CMMC or just general practices? You referenced level 1 as a good example, but what is the next best step for people to take after this webinar?
I can start off. I'd say the first step is to take a look inward, so to speak, in your organization and understanding what type of data your company handles. Again, kind of coming on the defense side, are you handling FCI, CUI, a combination of both? But understanding what kind of data your company is handling can help determine what level of protection is going to be required to continue sustaining, some of your business practices. From there, I've understood, exactly where the line is or where the standard should be for my business. Now I'm going to conduct some sort of analysis to see where I am in terms of respective compliance levels for my business. That's personally where I would start.
Thank you, Deja. Olivia?
Yes, to build off that, our course does actually cover cyber inventory, which is where you're able to kind of go through your business and see the different IT assets that you have, and which allows you then, in the event of an attack, to more quickly, efficiently, and effectively respond and recover, which is the goal. If we're down for too long, unfortunately, many small businesses that get hacked do go out of business, whether it be reputation or the financial impact. So it's just that proactive side.
And we do have a question. Sorry.
Well, let's let Randy answer first, and then we'll address the question. Thank you.
So I certainly agree with what's been said there. To that, I would add a couple things. One is go look at your current email and account password policies and implement multi-factor authentication. It's the most affordable and inexpensive thing that you can do to protect, because it's where most breaches come in. People use the same password at home, on their fitness club account, and their work accounts. They get stuck on an email password or an account password, and they use the same one. So anywhere it gets breached, they are now sophisticated where they'll go look at other places you exist and they'll use that. So multi-factor authentication. And then the other piece, to Olivia's point around doing an inventory of what you have. of software, of hardware, and of accounts that people have. And the things that you don't need, then get rid of those. It's amazing how many laptops have been shut down because somebody left the company or retired, and it's still active, and their email account is still active. Or you've got software that you no longer use. So doing that inventory and turning off those things that you no longer need, whether they're accounts or software or their devices, I think those things would be an immediate increase in your security posture and risk posture.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. And just on a personal note, we're talking about on the business side, but something Randy just said, I want to drive home. Even in your personal life, it's important to not use the same password for everything. I had a dear friend of mine who he used the same password for a lot of accounts, and now he has different passwords for all of them. If you can guess what happened in between, both those instances, there's quite a story there. But we will, Jill, I know you said you had a couple questions in the chat. If you could read those out, please.
Yes. Is it required as an owner, like a service provider owner, to have a clearance? Maybe if you can expand, do you mean like like a facility or secret clearance? That's what I think the question is.
Yeah. So no, not if your level of data only goes to CUI. Technically, it's not required. But again, I would turn to your contract or your subcontract agreement and see what it says. If you require a secret clearance, even though you're not doing classified work, the government will be very specific about that requirement, or your prime will be. So that will be in the contract, and it will be in the solicitations that come out from the government and other clients, whether or not that's required. But specifically, it's not in general required if you're not doing classified work. The government may require it in any case, and that would be in your contract. But to do CUI, you do not have to have an FCL at the secret or above level.
And I'd like to add there too, because there's a misconception that companies think that they can just go out and apply for a facility clearance or a personal secret clearance. That's not how it works. So if you have a contract that requires facility clearance, you will be sponsored by the government agency, or you will be sponsored by a large prime contractor to go through that process of getting the security clearances. It's not something that you can just go out and request.
And Randy, you're muted.
I apologize again, but this is a table, and as you can see in the purple area, you get into up to and including CUI specified information, which is like ITAR and CTI. As long as you're handling information to the left of that, to the left of confidential, you would not specifically need an FCL, but if the government requires it, then you'll need it. But that would be a contraction. That would be very explicit in the contract or the RFP.
Are you going to be able to make those slides available to us to post on the Matchmaker website?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
And I know Olivia and Deja have some slides that we'll get them from them if they'd like to provide them, and we'll get them posted as well. So, is there any other questions in the chat, Jill?
I don't see any others. No, not right now, and I don't see any in the Q&A.
So before we kind of wrap up this and transition over to the innovation focus, our panelists, what parting advice or words of wisdom would you like to provide our audience? And Randy, I will start with you, sir.
Okay, thank you. I would say, first of all, what the Apex is offering you and this team there is offering you is incredible, and you should take great advantage of that. What I would say, and maybe it's obvious, but there is a lot of angst out there around this. And I think there are companies out there who are charging a lot of money, and it's probably exorbitant. And as more competition comes into the audit market and some of the CMMC consulting market, it will get better. But if you have to go external or your needs take you away from, first of all, you should leverage the Ohio Apex services. It's incredible. If it takes you away from that, make sure you talk to several companies and look at the market, because it varies widely, and there are plenty of companies out there who are trying to take advantage of the scare tactics and angst that exists out there. This is manageable. You just need a company that will work with you, or a group that will work with you to figure out what your situation is and what you need. That would be my, I guess, number one takeaway.
Thank you, sir. Olivia?
Yes, thank you. I would say to be proactive and take the time, preferably by going through our course, which allows you to walk through things step by step, and just understand that when you're in that reactive situation, you might not be making the best decisions for yourself or your business. So we just really encourage you to, when you have the time with a clear head, to go through and create those incident response plans, those disaster recovery plans. So we just really encourage you to be proactive and protect yourself.
And Deja?
And you guys took all the good ones. I was gonna say the same thing. Talk to Apex and be proactive. But honestly, another very important thing to consider is the amount of hoops that you may have to jump through to reach these levels of certification. It's going to require a level of patience. There are a lot of unknowns in the world of cybersecurity that you may be walking into, and even still, a lot of red tape, as we all are already aware, that the government traditionally has. And so, with you walking into this new world of CMMC or cybersecurity, even outside of defense contracting, there are a ton of unknowns and levels of understanding that you're going to have to ascertain. So I just recommend that you be patient as with yourself and with your business as you're trying to achieve these levels of certification.
Thank you, Deja. And thank you to all of our panelists. Really appreciate your time joining us for this discussion on cybersecurity. So thank you all. And with that, we're going to kind of switch gears a little bit here. I know some of our panelists have some experience with innovation as well in SBIR. So we're going to try to transition here to innovation for last, part of our webinar. And you may be wondering, why would we pair, cybersecurity and innovation together? Well, as you heard, and Randy talked about this too, everything's evolving, right? And as innovation, and specifically the Small Business Innovation Research Program, is looked at, you want to make sure that if you are a company in that innovation space, one of the first questions they're going to ask is, are you secured? Are you prepared to handle the bulk of information that you're going to be dealing with when you're working on some of this R&D and creating new technologies and information. So we'll touch on that a little bit. I'd invite our panelists to jump in at any point in time if you have any advice or shared stories that you'd like to provide from your past experiences as well. So with that, innovation. So innovation comes in many forms. We'll talk primarily about the Small Business Innovation Research Program that is managed by the SBA, Small Business Administration. But we'll also talk about just general tech transfer, some other challenges, competitions, different forms of innovation, and where you might look to leverage those opportunities within your own business. So first up, is the most well-known innovation program, the Small Business Innovation Research Program, SBIR. It is, again, overseen by the SBA. They issue the guidelines for the program, known as the policy directive. They also determine the size standards for small businesses. And essentially, if you specifically Specifically for the SBIR program, if you have less than 500 employees, you qualify for SBIR funding. SBIR funding is non-dilutive, meaning that they're not taking equity or debt in your company. It is government funds provided to spur innovation. The reason this whole program exists is because the government loves innovation. They just can't always do it themselves. So that's why they rely on private industry to innovate in the market. Sometimes that happens organically and naturally. Other times there are specific technology or topic areas that need solutions sooner. And so that is why government will provide some funding in specific topic areas for those solutions. There are 11 federal agencies that participate in the SBIR program. Of those, there are 5 that participate in the sister program. It's the Small Business Tech Transfer Research Program. The difference between the SBIR and STTR programs is that for the STTR program, a small business needs to have a research institute partner. What does that mean? Well, it might be a university that does research, like Ohio State University, or it could be a federal lab or anything else like that. Olivia, I do believe that OSU does get involved with a lot of SBIR programs. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And our center is very involved with both of these. So we are able to be, that nonprofit institutional research partner for you.
So, just as an example, most, public universities have research programs, Office of Research. We'll talk about that later on because of why you want to look at those offices as well in tech transfer. But there's also the federal research labs. Think about, one is escaping me, but there are designated research facilities that are funded specifically to do research on innovation. They can partner on different opportunities as well. Where would you go to find SBIR opportunities? Oak Ridge Labs. Sorry, it was stuck on my mind that I was not going to be able to move on until I could think of an example, like Oak Ridge Labs or something like that as federal research. Anyway, if you're interested in innovation, where would you go? Well, for the SBIR program, first stop, and really your main stop, is SBIR.gov. To be able to respond to innovation opportunities, you need to be registered with SBIR.gov. You also need to be registered with the System for Award Management because these are federal opportunities. You need to be registered in SAM to respond to them. Looking back at the list here, there's 11 federal agencies. So, Department of Defense is a big one, right? And so DoD specifically has a portal called the Defense Cyber Innovation Portal, or DCIP. So if you are going to respond to DoD specific opportunities, you need to be registered with that portal as well. If you're responding to some of the other agencies, for example, Health and Human Services, you may need to be registered in grants.gov to respond to those opportunities. Without getting into the details too much, SBIR opportunities come in 2 forms: a contract or a grant. That's just the vehicle and how the funding is delivered. The main difference is, mission-driven agencies like DoD will use the form of a contract. More, solution-focused agencies, for the general good, like Health and Human Services, they would utilize the grant vehicle instead. So, how does the SBIR program work? Well, we have 3 phases. There's phase 1, which is all focused on proof of concept. Phase 2, which is the true R&D, development, and phase 3, which is commercialization. The key difference here between all 3 of these is phase 1 and phase 2 have actual dollars associated with them. Phase 3, that would be a contract. You would be selling your technology or your innovation to the government or the commercial market. One thing I always like to drive home with our clients is if you make it to phase 3, you have successfully completed, phase 1, phase 2, you've developed a technology, make sure the agency you're selling to understands that sole source authority exists for that phase 3 contract. Agency contract officers don't always realize that. What does that mean? Well, because you are the only company that created this technology, you're the only source of this technology, you're the only one that can provide it, meaning there's no real competition out there for it. You can have a direct contract without going through the whole process. So that's always important to have in the back of your mind when you are trying to sell to that government customer if you've gone through that SBIR process.
Joey, could I add real quick that it pertains broader than just the agency that initially sponsored the SBIR STTR. That capability to procure that technology through your company exists across the board within DoD and even some other agencies. So it is a very broad and powerful place to be with a phase 3 SBIR.
Thank you, sir. That's a good point. Just because you get funding originally from, say, Department of Air Force doesn't mean other agencies, that they may need your product. They may need that. They want to buy from you. So you're not just beholden to the agency that you started with. You want to sell to everybody who needs it. Thank you, sir. So kind of transitioning away from SBIR process, I always like to talk about tech transfer because not everyone understands that tech transfer is, available and is an innovative opportunity as well. So it's not necessarily going through that SBIR process or even the STTR process. Tech transfer in its truest form is essentially licensing technologies from a government agency or a university to either develop a new technology or to incorporate into some existing processes. For example, NASA, National Aerospace, Organization, they have a technology and patent portfolio of all these technologies that they've developed for space missions, right? And so they created this technology for their specific use, but they realized it could have commercial application. Obviously, NASA can't go out and commercialize their own technology, but they're more than willing to license it out to businesses to create commercial products. So, for example, there was a company that licensed some of the tire patents. So, same patent that, made a tire on a rover, almost indestructible. This company licensed that technology to create bicycle tires. And so then it's, now you have a bicycle that you don't have to worry about the tires deflating. I don't remember the name of that company. I just use that as an example. There are some really cool other examples out there. Department of Homeland Security is another agency that has some technology that they try to license, as well as Department of Air Force. So if you want to look at all the federal agencies that may have technology patents that are available for license, I recommend you go to TechLink there. Don't forget, though, like we talked about with universities, almost every university has their own Office of Research or its Office of Tech Transfer. The point of that office is essentially to license out technology that some of their researchers have created. And so that could be some opportunities as well. We've had some Apex clients who have successfully licensed technology from both NASA and some other like universities or agencies, and they are commercializing that and moving the needle on those technologies. So tech transfer, SBIR programs, all important opportunities to explore. Also, you may hear of challenges. So especially within the Department of Defense, they have this term called a challenge. It's essentially just a different form of innovation. They have a specific need that they'll take proposals for, and then you may get some funding if your solution is picked. So it's kind of like a precursor to the SBIR process. It'll get your foot in the door if it makes sense. and you can go to challenge.gov to explore any of those current or historical opportunities. Consortiums, these are groups that the government may work with to host innovation opportunities, so to speak. So there's different types of consortiums. Some require a fee to join, some are entirely no cost. It depends on the consortium and the entity, but essentially at its base, a consortium is just a group of like-minded businesses, in the same market who are, trying to leverage their networks for specific opportunities. So, if you've attended any of our webinars on Defense Production Act, Title III, or IBAS, industrial base analysis and sustainment, there are some consortiums that the government utilizes to basically manage those programs and those opportunities. So consortiums are always worth looking at as well. I had one client many years ago. They were working on a rebreather mask, and their specialty was building in better communication equipment within that rebreather mask for soldiers. And we were trying to find opportunities for that R&D. And what we ended up looking at was a consortium that was managing the CBRN innovation opportunities. I don't remember what CBRN stands for, but that was essentially, there was no open SBIR topic, but there were some specific innovation opportunities within a consortium that specifically dealt with the CBRN office. So just an example there. And last but not least, I always like to mention that the prime contractors, the large primes, think Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, General Dynamics, these folks have their own innovation programs. So not only could they be a partner in an SBIR opportunity, sometimes they will be a subcontractor to a small business through the SBIR program, but they have their own SBIR-like opportunities. So, they are always spurring innovation within their own businesses, trying to be as competitive and responsive to the government's needs and their own commercial needs as possible. So each of those large prime contractors may have their own specific SBIR or technology office. And so Raytheon was a big one. Again, General Dynamics, Lockheed Martin. If you're ever interested, while this is in no way a commercial for a specific conference or not, always do your own research, but sometimes you will see them at conferences like the Tech Connect conference or Defense Tech Connect. That's an annual meeting where a lot of innovation companies and the large primes are meeting to look at those opportunities. So there's opportunities to network. And if you've heard some of our past webinars in this series, networking and building those relationships with the government is important. Hence why we have the Ohio Business Matchmaker to help bring you all into the same space. So some innovation resources just to kind of wrap up here. DefenseWorks, if you are not familiar with that DefenseWorks ecosystem, there are different hubs. Kind of think about that innovation consortium model. DefenseWorks is all focused on rapid innovation. And so there's different hubs that focus on specific needs in the government. So for example, Department of Homeland Security has the HS Works. And so that is the Department of Homeland Security hub within DefenseWorks, the greater network. CIA has their own innovation labs that's part of the DefenseWorks network. So SOCOM, same thing, it's called SoftWorks. So if you go to that website, you can see all the different hubs and you can join that ecosystem there. Again, if you are in the innovation space, that is a good point of reference to start networking with individuals. Manufacturing Innovation Institutes, these are also hub-focused programs that focus on different manufacturing needs. For example, 3D printing, additive manufacturing, automation, cybersecurity, a whole lot of other things there. So there's defense-funded programs. There's I think Department of Energy has some manufacturing institutes, and there might be a few other sponsoring agencies. And then here in Ohio, we have a lot of great resources to assist. So from the Federal Research Network to Apex Accelerators to Small Business Development Center, Manufacturing Extension Partnership, our Third Frontier programs hosted by Development, OSU, CDME, resources that we can connect you with as well, like Ivory and other companies who understand these programs. So we always work on connecting our clients with opportunities, whether it's actual contract opportunities or resources. So that is kind of our little foray into innovation. And I will pause there for any questions. But before I do, Olivia, Randy, Deja, anything you all would like to add on the innovation side of things?
I have one comment, and a lot of folks know this already, but a lot of times working with the government, it's very frustrating. They're not good at communicating to industry writ large or specific companies around specific opportunities. The SBIR program, STTR, and some of these others, the consortiums, it is one of the best avenues where the government truly opens up and will have one-on-one discussions with businesses that are interested in a particular opportunity, and they'll go into detail with you. Number one, I would take advantage of that. And number two, I would never submit a response and take the time and energy it takes to do that unless the government and the technical points of contact are typically in these programs that are published, without contacting them and having a situation where they're expecting to get your proposal. It's not one of those things where you pick something out and sort of submit blind. It almost never works that way. So take advantage of this, at least one area where the government has typically been very good about communicating individually with companies that have good ideas.
Thank you, sir. Olivia, anything you'd like to add? Or Deja, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Olivia. I'd just like to echo Randy's point. You certainly want to do your due diligence as you are putting forth all the work to submit any of these proposals or documents. But even still, the representatives at these respective MIIs or consortiums, and even still the research labs for Cybersecurity are maintaining some of the same open door policies that we do here at the Apex Accelerator, where they are more than willing to take your questions prior to doing all that work to submit the documents. I've had the pleasure of working pretty closely with people in the Air Force Materiel Command, specifically the Air Force Research Labs, and they are chomping at the bit for interested parties to ask questions and to dig in with both feet, essentially to again, to Randy's point, make sure that they've asked all the right questions and have found the appropriate opportunities.
And then I would just add that the Office of Sponsored Programs at Ohio State is a great resource that you can reach out to besides myself with our center that does these sippers and sitters. And then another group that I've worked with in the past is TechWorks, and they are the DOE funded innovation hub, if anyone's interested in that specifically.
Thank you. One other thing I will add, as we kind of start to wrap up here, is Ohio has been synonymous with innovation for many years. Ohio is actually always in the top 10 states receiving SBIR awards. From Wright brothers to today, Ohio is always at the forefront of innovation, and there's a lot of resources around that ecosystem. So we are more than happy to help you, whether you are looking for innovation opportunities, cybersecurity assistance, or anything else. Please reach out. We will get you connected to the resources that are available. With that, I'm not seeing any questions. So Jill, would you like to close us out, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. And thank you to our panelists for their wealth of knowledge today. There's a lot to unpack with cybersecurity. There's a lot to unpack with the SBIR and STTR programs, but there is help out there. So hopefully, all of you that participated today and those that are going to hear this recording, you get an idea of where to start first. And that is, as Randy was mentioning, there's so many companies out there that would love to charge you for what you can do for free with these resources. So thank you for attending today. We hope that you found this session helpful. Please join us next week. We are having webinar trainings on the next week is focused on teaming and joint venturing. So the morning session will be on joint venture agreements. The afternoon session will be on the SBA and DoD mentor protege program. And I hope that all of you can join us for the actual matchmaker, which is just 2 weeks away. Again, go to the Ohio Business Matchmaker website for recordings of our prior webinars. We will post the slides from today's presentation there, and just, reach out if you have any questions. All right, I think that concludes my remarks. I hope everybody has a great afternoon.